This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This reading by Kara Schallenberg. Beowulf, translated by Francis Barton Gomer. Section 1. Lo, praise of the prowess of people-kings, of spear-armed Danes, in days long sped, we have heard, and what honour the Athelings won. Oft skilled the Skeffing from squadroned foes, from many a tribe, the mead bench tore, a-wing the earls. Since erst he lay friendless, a foundling, fate repaid him, for he waxed under welkin, in wealth he throve, till before him the folk both far and near, who housed by the whale path, heard his mandate, gave him gifts. A good king he. To him an heir was afterward born, a son in his halls whom heaven sent to favour the folk, feeling their woe, that erst they had lacked an earl for leader so long a while. The Lord endowed him with wielder of wonder, with world's renown. Famed was this Beowulf, far flew the boast of him, son of Scyld, in the Scandian lands. So becomes it a youth to quit him well with his father's friends, by fee and gift, that to aid him, aged, in after days come warriors willing, should war draw nigh, liegemen loyal. By lauded deeds shall an earl have honour in every clan. Forth he fared at the fated moment, sturdy skilled, to the shelter of God. Then they bore him over the ocean's billow, loving clansmen, as late he charged them, while wielded words the winsome Scyld, the leader beloved who long had ruled. In the roadstead rocked a ring-dight vessel, ice-flecked, outbound, Atheling's barge. There laid they down their darling lord on the breast of the boat, the breaker of rings. By the mast the mighty one. Many a treasure fetched from far was freighted with him. No ship have I known so nobly dight with weapons of war and weeds of battle, with breastplate and blade. On his bosom lay a heaped hoard that hence should go far o'er the flood with him floating away. No less these loaded the lordly gifts, thane's huge treasure, than those had done who in former time forth had sent him sole on the seas, a suckling child. High o'er his head they hoist the standard, a gold-wove banner, let billows take him, gave him to ocean. Grave were their spirits, mournful their mood. No man is able to say in sooth, no son of the halls, no hero 'neath heaven, who harboured that freight. Now Beowulf bode in the burg of the Scyldings, leader beloved, and long he ruled, in fame with all folk, since his father had gone away from the world, till awoke an heir, haughty Healfdene, who held through life, sage and sturdy, the Scyldings glad. Then one after one there woke to him, to the chieftain of clansmen, children four. Heorogar, then Hrothgar, then Halga brave, and I heard that blank was blank's queen, the Heathoscylfing's helpmate dear. To Hrothgar was given such glory of war, such honour of combat, that all his kin obeyed him gladly, till great grew his band of youthful comrades. It came in his mind to bid his henchmen a hall uprear, a master mead-house, mightier far than ever was seen by the sons of earth, and within it then to old and young he would all allot that the Lord had sent him, save only the land and the lives of his men. Wide, I heard, was the work commanded, for many a tribe this mid-earth round, to fashion the folkstead. It fell as he ordered, in rapid achievement, that ready it stood there, of halls the noblest. Heorot he named it, whose message had might in many a land. Not reckless of promise, the rings he dealt, treasure at banquet. There towered the hall, high, gabled wide, the hot surge waiting of furious flame. Nor far was that day when father and son-in-law stood in feud for warfare and hatred that woke again. With envy and anger an evil spirit endured the dole in his dark abode, that he heard each day the din of revel high in the hall. There harps rang out, clear song of the singer. He sang who knew tales of the early time of man, how the Almighty made the earth, fairest fields enfolded by water, set triumphant sun and moon for a light to lighten the land-dwellers, and braided bright the breast of earth with limbs and leaves, made life for all of mortal beings that breathe and move. So lived the clansmen in cheer and revel a winsome life, till one began to fashion evils, that field of hell. Grendel this monster grim was called, March Reaver mighty, in moorland living, in fen and fastness. Fief of the giants, the hapless wight a while had kept since the Creator his exile doomed. On kin of Cain was the killing avenged, by sovereign God for slaughtered Abel. Ill fared his feud, and far was he driven, for the slaughter's sake, from sight of men. Of Cain awoke all that woeful breed, Etins and elves and evil spirits, as well as the giants that warred with God weary while, but their wage was paid them. Went he forth to find at fall of night that haughty house, and heed wherever the ring-dames out revel to rest had gone. Found within it the Atheling band, asleep after feasting, and fearless of sorrow of human hardship. Unhallowed wight, grim and greedy, he grasped betimes, wrathful, reckless from resting places, thrifty of the fanes, and thence he rushed fain of his fell spoil, faring homeward, laden with slaughter, his lair to seek. Then at the dawning, as day was breaking, the might of Grendel to men was known. Then after wassail was wail uplifted, loud moan in the morn. The mighty chief, Atheling excellent, unblithe sat, labored in woe for the loss of his thanes, when once had been traced the trail of the fiend, spirit accursed, too cruel that sorrow, too long, too loathsome. Not late the respite, with night returning anew began ruthless murder. He recked no whit, firm in his guilt of the feud and crime. They were easy to find who elsewhere sought in room remote their rest at night, bed in the bowers, when that bale was shown, was seen in sooth, with surest token, the hall thane's hate. Such held themselves far and fast who the fiend outran. Thus ruled unrighteous and raged his fill one against all, until empty stood that lordly building, and long it bode so. 12 years tide the trouble he bore, sovereign of Scyldings, sorrows in plenty, boundless cares. There came unhidden tidings true to the tribes of men in sorrowful songs, how ceaselessly Grendel harassed Hrothgar, what hate he bore him, what murder and massacre many a year, feud unfading. Refused consent to deal with any of Daneland's earls, make pact of peace, or compound for gold. Still less did the wise men ween to get great fee for the feud from his fiendish hands. But the evil one ambushed old and young, death shadow dark, and dogged them still, lured or lurked in the livelong night of misty moorlands. Men may say not where the haunts of these hell runes be. Such heaping of horrors the hater of men, lonely roamer, wrought unceasing, harassings heavy. O'er Heorot he lorded, gold-bright hall in gloomy nights, and ne'er could the prince approach his throne, 'twas judgment of God, or have joy in his hall. Sore was the sorrow to Scyldings' friend, heart-rending misery. Many nobles sat assembled, and searched out counsel how it were best for bold-hearted men against harassing terror to try their hand. Whilst they vowed in their heathen fanes altar offerings, asked with words that the Slayer of Souls would succor give them for the pain of their people. Their practice this, their heathen hope, 'twas hell they thought of in mood of their mind. Almighty they knew not, doomsman of deeds and dreadful lord, nor heaven's helmet heeded they ever. wielder of wonder. Woe for that man who in harm and hatred hales his soul to fiery embraces. Nor favor nor change awaits he ever, but well for him that after death day may draw to his lord, and friendship find in the Father's arms. Thus seethed unceasing the son of Healfdene with the woe of these days. Not wisest men assuaged his sorrow, too sore the anguish, loathly and long, that lay on his folk, most baneful of burdens and bales of the night. This heard in his home Hygelac's thane, great among Geats, of Grendel's doings. He was the mightiest man of valor in that same day of this our life, stalwart and stately, a stout wave-walker, he bade make ready. Yon battle-king, said he, far o'er the swan road he fain would seek the noble monarch who needed men. The prince's journey by prudent folk was little blamed, though they loved him dear. They whetted the hero and hailed good omens, and now the bold one from bands of Geats comrades chose, the keenest of warriors ere he could find. With 14 men the sea-wood he sought, and, sailor proved, led them on to the land's confines. Time had now flown. Afloat was the ship, boat under bluff. On board they climbed, warriors ready, waves were churning sea with sand. The sailors bore on the breast of the bark their bright array, their mail and weapons. The men pushed off on its willing way the well-braced craft. Then moved o'er the waters by might of the wind that bark like a bird with breast of foam, till in season due, on the second day, the curved prow such course had run that sailors now could see the land, sea-cliffs shining, steep high hills, headlands broad. Their haven was found, their journey ended. Up then quickly the waders' clansmen climbed the shore, anchored their sea-wood, with armor clashing and gear of battle. God they thanked for passing in peace o'er the paths of the sea. Now saw from the cliff a Scylding clansman, a warden that watched the water-side, how they bore o'er the gangway glittering shields, war-gear in readiness. Wonder seized him to know what manner of men they were. Straight to the strand his steed he rode, Hrothgar's henchman. With hand of might he shook his spear and spake in parley. Who are ye then, ye armed men, mailed folk, that yon mighty vessel have urged thus over the ocean ways, here o'er the waters? A warden I, sentinel set o'er the sea-march here, lest any foe to the folk of Danes with harrying fleet should harm the land. No aliens ever at ease thus bore them, linden-wielders. Yet word of leave clearly ye lack from clansmen here, my folk's agreement. A greater ne'er saw I of warriors in world than is one of you, yon hero in harness. No henchman he worthied by weapons, if witness his features, his peerless presence. I pray you, though, tell your folk and home, lest hence ye fare, suspect to wander your way as spies in Danish land. Now, dwellers afar, ocean travellers, take from me simple advice. The sooner the better I hear of the country whence ye came. To him the stateliest spake in answer, the warrior's leader his word-hoard unlocked. We are by kin of the clan of Geats, and Hygelac's own hearth-fellows we. To folk afar was my father known, noble atheling, Ecgtheow named. Full of winters he fared away aged from earth. He is honored still through width of the world by wise men all. To thy lord and liege in loyal mood we hasten hither, to Healfdene's son, people protector, be pleased to advise us. To that mighty one come we on mickle errand, to the lord of the Danes, nor deem I right that aught be hidden. We hear, thou knowest if sooth it is, the saying of men that amid the Scyldings a scathing monster, dark ill-doer in dusky nights, shows terrific his rage unmatched, hatred and murder. To Hrothgar I in greatness of soul would succor bring, so the wise and brave may worst his foes. If ever the end of ills is fated of cruel contest, if cure shall follow, and the boiling care-waves cooler grow. Else ever afterward anguish days he shall suffer in sorrow while stands in place high on its hill that house unpeered. Astride his steed the strand-ward answered, clansman unquailing, "The keen-souled thane must be skilled to sever and sunder duly words and works, if he well intends. I gather this band is graciously bent to the Scyldings' master. March, then, bearing weapons and weeds the way I show you. I will bid my men your boat meanwhile to guard, for fear lest foemen come, your new-tarred ship by shore of ocean faithfully watching till once again it waft o'er the waters these well-loved fanes, winding-necked wood, to waders' bounds, heroes such as the hest of fate shall succour and save from the shock of war." They bent them to march. The boat lay still, fettered by cable and fast at anchor, broad-bosomed ship. Then shone the boars over the cheek-guard, chased with gold, keen and gleaming. Guard it kept o'er the man-of-war as marched along heroes in haste, till the hall they saw, broad of gable and bright with gold, that was the fairest, mid folk of earth, of houses 'neath heaven where Hrothgar lived, and the gleam of it lightened o'er lands afar. The sturdy shieldsman showed that bright burg of the boldest, bade them go straightway hither. His steed then turned, hardy hero, and hailed them thus: "'Tis time that I fare from you. Father Almighty in grace and mercy guard you well, safe in your seekings. Seaward I go, 'gainst hostile warriors hold my watch." End of section 1. Read by Kara Schallenberg, www.kray.org, on September 25th, 2006, in Oceanside, California.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This reading by Kara Schallenberg. Beowulf. Translated by Francis Barton Gamer. Section 2. Stone bright the street. It showed the way to the crowd of clansmen. Corselets glistened, hand-forged, hard. On their harness bright the steel ring sang as they strode along in mail of battle and marched to the hall. There, weary of ocean, the wall along they set their bucklers, their broad shields down, and bowed them to bench. The breastplates clanged, war gear of men, their weapons stacked. Spears of the seafarers stood together, gray-tipped. That iron band was worthily weaponed. A warrior proud asked of the heroes their home and kin. "Whence now bear ye burnished shields, harness gray and helmets grim, spears in multitude? Messenger I, Hrothgar's herald. Heroes so many ne'er met I as strangers of mood so strong. 'Tis plain for that prowess, not plunged into exile, for high-hearted valor, Hrothgar ye seek. Him the sturdy in war bespake with words, proud earl of the Weders answer made, hardy 'neath helmet. Hygelacs, we fellows at board, I am Beowulf named. I am seeking to say to the son of Healfdene this mission of mine, to thy master lord, the doughty prince, if he deign at all grace that we greet him, the good one now." Wulfgar spake, the Wendels' chieftain, whose might of mind to many was known, his courage and counsel. "The king of Danes, the Scyldings' friend, I fain will tell the breaker of rings, as the boon thou askest, the famed prince of thy faring hither, and swiftly after such answer bring as the doughty monarch may deign to give. Hide then in haste to where Hrothgar sat, white-haired and old, his earls about him, till the stout thane stood at the shoulder there of the Danish king, good courtier he. Wulfgar spake to his winsome lord, Hither have fared to thee far-come men o'er the paths of ocean, people of Geatland, and the stateliest there by his sturdy band is Beowulf named. This boon they seek, that they, my master, may with thee have speech at will, nor spurn their prayer to give them hearing, gracious Hrothgar. In weeds of the warrior worthy they, methinks, of our liking. Their leader most surely, a hero that hither his henchmen has led. Hrothgar answered, helmet of Scyldings, I knew him of yore in his youthful days. His aged father was Ecgtheow named, to whom, at home, gave Hrethel the Geat his only daughter. Their offspring bold fares hither to seek the steadfast friend. And seamen too have said me this, who carried my gift to the Geatish court, thither for thanks. He has 30 men's heft of grasp in the grip of his hand, the bold in battle. Blessed God out of his mercy this man hath sent to Danes of the West, as I ween indeed, against horror of Grendel. I hope to give the good youth gold for his gallant thought. Be thou in haste, and bid them hither, clan of kinsmen, to come before me, and add this word, they are welcome guests to folk of the Danes. To the door of the hall Wulfgar went, and the word declared, to you this message my master sends, East Danes' king, that your kin he knows, hardy heroes, and hails you all. Welcome hither o'er waves of the sea. Ye may wend your way in war attire, and under helmets Hrothgar greet, but let here the battle shields bide your parley, and wooden war shafts wait its end. Up rose the mighty one, ringed with his men, brave band of thanes. Some bode without, battle gear guarding, as bade the chief. Then hied that troop where the herald led them, under Heorot's roof. The hero strode, hardy 'neath helm, till the hearth he neared. Beowulf spake, his breastplate gleamed, war net woven by wit of the smith. Thou, Hrothgar, hail! Hygelac's I, kinsman and follower. Fame a-plenty have I gained in youth. These Grendel deeds I heard in my homeland heralded clear. Seafarers say how stands this hall of buildings best, for your band of thanes empty and idle, when evening's sun in the harbor of heaven is hidden away. So my vassals advised me well, brave and wise, the best of men. O sovereign Hrothgar, to seek thee here for my nerve and my might they knew full well. Themselves had seen me from slaughter come, blood-flecked from foes, where 5 I bound, and that wild brood worsted. I the waves I slew Nicors by night, in need and peril avenging the waders, whose woe they sought, crushing the grim ones. Grendel now, monster cruel, be mine to quell in single battle. So from thee, thou sovereign of the shining Danes, Scyldings' bulwark, a boon I seek, and, friend of the folk, refuse it not. O warrior shield, now I've wandered far, that I alone with my liegemen here, this hardy band, may Heorot purge. More I hear, that the monster dire in his wanton mood of weapons recks not, hence shall I scorn. So Hygelac stay, king of my kindred, kind to me. Brand or buckler to bear in the fight, gold-colored targe. But with grip alone must I front the fiend and fight for life, foe against foe. Then faith be his in the doom of the Lord whom death shall take. Fain, I ween, if the fight he win, in this hall of gold my Geatish band will he fearless eat, as oft before, my noblest thanes. Nor needst thou then to hide my head, for his shall I be, dyed in gore if death must take me, and my blood-covered body he'll bear as prey, ruthless devour it, the roamer lonely, with my life-blood redden his lair in the fen. No further for me needst food prepare. To Hygelac send, if Hild should take me, best of war weeds, warding my breast, armor excellent, heirloom of Hrethel, and work of Wayland, fares weird as she must. Hrothgar spake, the Scyldings' helmet. For fight defensive, friend my Beowulf, to succor and save, thou hast sought us here. Thy father's combat a feud enkindled, when Heathaloth with hand he slew among the Wylfings. His Weder kin for horror of fighting feared to hold him. Fleeing, he sought our South Dane folk, over surge of ocean, the honor-skildings, when first I was ruling the folk of Danes, wielded, youthful, this widespread realm, this hoard-hold of heroes. Heorogar was dead, my elder brother, had breathed his last, Healfdane's bairn, he was better than I. Straightway the feud with fee I settled, to the Wylfing sent, o'er watery ridges, treasures olden. Oath he swore me. Sore is my soul to say to any of the race of man what ruth for me in Heorot Grendel with hate hath wrought, what sudden harryings. Hall folk fail me, my warriors wane, for Weird hath swept them into Grendel's grasp. But God is able this deadly foe from his deeds to turn. Boasted full oft as my beer they drank, earls o'er the ale cup, armed men, that they would bide in the beer hall here, Grendel's attack with terror of blades. Then was this mead house at morning tide dyed with gore, when the daylight broke, all the boards of the benches blood besprinkled gory the hall. I had heroes the less, doughty dear ones that death had reft. But sit to the banquet, unbind thy words, hardy hero, as heart shall prompt thee. Gathered together, the Geatish men in the banquet hall on bench assigned, sturdy-spirited, sat them down, hardy-hearted. A henchman attended, carried the carven cup in hand, served the clear mead. Oft minstrels sang, blithe in Heorot. Heroes revelled, no dearth of warriors, Weder and Dane. Unferth spake, the son of Ecglaf, who sat at the feet of the Scyldings' lord, unbound the battle runes. Beowulf's quest, sturdy seafarers, sorely galled him. Ever he envied that other men should more achieve in Middle-earth of fame under heaven than he himself. Art thou that Beowulf, Brecca's rival, who emulous swam on the open sea, when for pride the pair of you proved the floods, and wantonly dared in waters deep to risk your lives? No living man, or leaf, or loath, from your labor dire could you dissuade, from swimming the main. Ocean tides with your arms ye covered, with strenuous hands the sea streets measured, swam o'er the waters. Winter's storm rolled the rough waves. In realm of sea a Sennight strove ye. In swimming he topped thee, had more of main. Him at morning tide billows bore to the battling Remas, whence he hied to his home so dear, beloved of his liegemen, to land of Brondings, fastness fair, where his folk he ruled, town and treasure. In triumph o'er thee Beanstan's bairn his boast achieved, so ween I for thee a worse adventure, though in buffet of battle thou brave hast been, in struggle grim. If Grendel's approach thou darest wait through the watch of night. Beowulf spake, bairn of Ecgtheow. What a deal hast uttered, dear my Unferth, drunken with beer, of Brecca now, told of his triumph. Truth I claim it, that I had more of might in the sea than any man else, more ocean endurance. We twain had talked in time of youth, and made our boast. We were merely boys, striplings still, to stake our lives far at sea, and so we performed it. Naked swords as we swam along we held in hand, with hope to guard us against the whales. Not a whit from me could he float far o'er the flood of waves, haste o'er the billows, nor him I abandoned. Together we twain on the tides abode 5 nights full, till the flood divided us, churning waves and chillest weather, darkling night, and the northern wind ruthless rushed on us. Rough was the surge. Now the wrath of the sea-fish rose apace, yet me 'gainst the monsters my mailed coat, hard and hand-linked, help afforded. Battle-sark braided my breast to ward, garnished with gold. There grasped me firm and haled me to bottom the hated foe with grimmest grip. 'Twas granted me, though, to pierce the monster with point of sword, with blade of battle. Huge beast of the sea was whelmed by the hurly through hand of mine. Me thus often the evil monsters thronging threatened. with thrust of my sword, the darling, I dealt them due return. Nowise had they bliss from their booty than to devour their victim, vengeful creatures, seated to banquet at bottom of sea. But at break of day, my brand sore hurt, on the edge of ocean up they lay, put to sleep by the sword. And since by them on the fathomless sea ways sailor folk are never molested, light from east came bright God's beacon, the billows sank, so that I saw the sea cliffs' high windy walls. For weird oft saveth Earl undoomed if he doughty be. And so it came that I killed with my sword 9 of the nicors. Of night-fought battles ne'er heard I a harder 'neath heaven's dome, nor adrift on the deep a more desolate man. Yet I came unharmed from that hostile clutch, though spent with swimming. The sea upbore me, flood of the tide, on finished land, the welling waters. Nowise of thee have I heard men tell such terror of falchions, bitter battle. Breca ne'er yet, not one of you pair, in the play of war such daring deed has done it all with bloody brand. I boast not of it, though thou wast the bane of thy brethren dear, thy closest kin, whence curse of hell awaits thee, well as thy wit may serve. For I say in sooth, thou son of Ecglaf, never had Grendel these grim deeds wrought, monster dire, on thy master dear, in Heorot such havoc, if heart of thine were as battle bold as thy boast is loud. But he has found no feud will happen, from sword clash dread of your Danish clan he vaunts him safe, from the victor Scyldings. He forces pledges, favours none of the land of Danes, but lustily murders, fights, and feasts, nor feud he dreads from spear-Dane men. But speedily now shall I prove him the prowess and pride of the Geats, shall bid him battle. Blithe to mead go he that listeth, when light of dawn this morrow morning o'er men of earth, ether-robed sun from the south shall beam. Joyous then was the jewel-giver, hoar-haired, war-brave. Help awaited the bright Danes' prince, from Beowulf hearing, folk's good shepherd, such firm resolve. Then was laughter of liegemen loud resounding with winsome words. Came Wealhtheow forth, queen of Hrothgar, heedful of courtesy, gold-decked, greeting the guests in hall, and the high-born lady handed the cup first to the East Danes' heir and warden, bade him be blithe at the beer carouse, the land's beloved one. Lustily took he banquet and beaker, battle-famed king. Through the hall then went the Helmings' lady, two younger and older everywhere carried the cup, till come the moment when the ring-graced queen, the royal-hearted, to Beowulf bore the beaker of mead. She greeted the Geats' lord, God she thanked in wisdom's words, that her will was granted, that at last on a hero her hope could lean for comfort in terrors. The cup he took, hardy in war, from Wealhtheow's hand, and answer uttered the eager for combat. Beowulf spake, bairn of Ecgtheow. This was my thought, when my thanes and I bent to the ocean and entered our boat, that I would work the will of your people fully, or fighting fall in death in fiend's grip fast. I am firm to do an earl's brave deed, or end the days of this life of mine in the mead hall here. Well these words to the woman seemed, Beowulf's battle boast. Bright with gold the stately dame by her spouse sat down. Again, as erst, began in hall warriors' wassail and words of power, the proud band's revel, till presently the son of Healfdene hastened to seek rest for the night. He knew there waited fight for the fiend in that festal hall, when the sheen of the sun they saw no more, and dusk of night sank darkling nigh, and shadowy shapes came striding on, wan under welkin. The warriors rose. Man to man he made harangue, Hrothgar to Beowulf, bade him hail, let him wield the wine-hall. A word he added. Never to any man erst I trusted, since I could heave up hand and shield this noble Dane-hall, till now to thee. Have now and hold this house unpeered. Remember thy glory, thy might declare, watch for the foe. No wish shall fail thee if thou bidest the battle with bold-won life. End of section 2. Read by Kara Schallenberg. www.kray.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Karen Savage, Waco, Texas, August 2006. Beowulf. Translated by Francis Barton Gummer. Section 3. Then Hrothgar went with his hero train, defence of Scyldings, forth from hall. Fain would the war-lord Wealhtheow seek, couch of his queen. The king of glory against this Grendel a guard had set, so heroes heard, a hall defender, who warded the monarch and watched for the monster. In truth the Geats' prince gladly trusted his mettle, his might, the mercy of God. Cast off then his corslet of iron, helmet from head, to his henchman gave choicest of weapons, the well-chased sword, bidding him guard the gear of battle. Spake then his vaunt the valiant man, Beowulf gate, ere the bed be sought. Of force in fight no feebler I count him, in grim war deeds than Grendel deems him. Not with the sword then to sleep of death his life will I give, though it lie in my power. No skill is his to strike against me, my shield to hew though he hardy be, bold in battle. We both this night shall spurn the sword, if he seek me here unweaponed for war. Let wisest God, sacred Lord, on which side soever doom decree as he deemeth right. Reclined then the chieftain, and cheek-pillows held the head of the earl, while all about him seamen hardy on hall-beds sank. None of them thought that thence their steps to the folk and fastness that fostered them, to the land they loved, would lead them back. Full well they wist that on warriors many battle death seized, in the banquet hall of Danish clan. But comfort and help, war-wheel weaving, to Weder folk the master gave, that by might of one over their enemy all prevailed by single strength. In sooth 'tis told that highest God o'er humankind hath wielded ever. Through one night striding came the walker in shadow. Warriors slept, whose hest was to guard the gabled hall, all save one. 'Twas widely known that against God's will the ghostly ravager him could not hurl to haunts of darkness. Wakeful, ready, with warriors' wrath, bold he bided the battle's issue. Then from the moorland by misty crags with God's wrath laden Grendel came. The monster was minded of mankind now, sundry to seize in the stately house. Under welkin he walked, till the wine palace there, gold hall of men, he gladly discerned, flashing with fretwork. Not first time this that he the home of Hrothgar sought, yet ne'er in his life day, late or early, such hardy heroes, such hall thanes found. To the house the warrior walked apace, parted from peace. The portal opened it, though with forged bolts fast, when his fist had struck it, and baleful he burst in his blatant rage the house's mouth. All hastily then, o'er fair paved floor, the fiend trod on, ireful he strode. There streamed from his eyes fearful flashes, like flame to see. He spied in hall the hero band, kin and clansmen clustered asleep, hardy liegemen. Then laughed his heart, for the monster was minded, ere morn should dawn, savage to sever the soul of each, life from body, since lustful banquet waited his will. But Weird forbade him to seize any more of men on earth after that evening. Eagerly watched Hygelac's clansman, his cursed foe, how he would fare in fell attack. Not that the monster was minded to pause. Straightway he seized a sleeping warrior for the first, and tore him fiercely asunder. The bone frame bit, drank blood in streams, swallowed him piecemeal. Swiftly thus the lifeless corse was clear devoured, e'en feet and hands. Then farther he hied, for the hardy hero with hand he grasped, felt for the foe with fiendish claw, for the hero reclining, who clutched it boldly, prompt to answer, propped on his arm. Soon then saw that shepherd of evils that never he met in this middle world, in the ways of earth, another wight with heavier handgripe. At heart he feared, sorrowed in soul, none the sooner escaped. Fain would he flee, his fastness seek the den of devils, no doings now such as oft he had done in days of old. Then bethought him the hardy Hygelac thane of his boasted evening. Up he bounded, grasped firm his foe, whose fingers cracked. The fiend made off, but the earl close followed. The monster meant, if he might at all, to fling himself free and far away fly to the fens. knew his finger's power in the gripe of the grim one. Gruesome march to Herod this monster of harm had made. Din filled the room, the Danes were bereft, castle dwellers and clansmen all, earls of their ale. Angry were both those savage hall-guards, the house resounded. Wonder it was the wine-hall firm in the strain of their struggle stood, to earth the fair house fell not, too fast it was within and without by its iron bands craftily clamped, though there crashed from sill many a mead-bench. Men have told me, gay with gold, where the grim foes wrestled, so well had weened the wisest Scyldings that not ever at all might any man that bone-decked brave house break asunder, crush by craft, unless clasp of fire and smoke engulfed it. Again uprose din redoubled. Danes of the north with fear and frenzy were filled, each one, who from the wall that wailing heard, God's foe sounding his grisly song, cry of the conquered, clamorous pain from captive of hell. Too closely held him he who of men in might was strongest in that same day of this our life. Not in any wise would the earl's defence suffer that slaughterous stranger to live, unless deeming his days and years to men on earth. Now many an earl of Beowulf brandished blade ancestral, fain the life of their lord to shield their praised prince, if power were theirs. Never they knew, as they neared the foe, hardy-hearted heroes of war, aiming their swords on every side the accursed to kill. No keenest blade, no fairest of falchions fashioned on earth, could harm or hurt that hideous fiend. He was safe by his spells from sword of battle, from edge of iron. Yet his end and parting on that same day of this our life woeful should be, and his wandering soul far off flit the fiend's domain. Soon he found, who in former days, harmful in heart and hated of God, on many a man such murder wrought, that the frame of his body failed him now. For him the keen-souled kinsmen of Hygelac held in hand, hateful alive was to each other. The outlaw dire took mortal hurt, a mighty wound showed on his shoulder, and sinews cracked and the bone-frame burst. To Beowulf now the glory was given, and Grendel thence, death-sick, his den in the dark moor sought, noisome abode. He knew too well that here was the last of life, an end of his days on earth. To all the Danes by that bloody battle the boon had come. From ravage had rescued the roving stranger Hrothgar's hall. The hardy and wise one had purged it anew. His night-work pleased him, his deed and its honour. To eastern Danes had the valiant Geat his vaunt made good, all their sorrow and ills assuaged, their bale of battle borne so long, and all the dole they erst endured pain a-plenty. 'Twas proof of this when the hardy in fight a hand laid down, arm and shoulder, all indeed of Grendel's gripe, 'neath the gabled roof. Many at morning, as men have told me, warriors gathered the gift-hall round, folk-leaders faring from far and near, o'er wide-stretched ways, the wonder to view, trace of the traitor. Not troublous seemed the enemy's end to any man who saw by the gate of the graceless foe how the weary-hearted, away from thence, baffled in battle and band, his steps death-marked dragged to the Devil's Mere. Bloody the billows were boiling there, turbid the tide of tumbling waves horribly seething, with sword-blood hot, by that doomed one died, who in den of the moor laid forlorn his life adown, his heathen soul in hell received it. Home then rode the hoary clansmen from that merry journey, and many a youth on horses white, the hardy warriors back from the mere. Then Beowulf's glory eager they echoed, and all averred that from sea to sea, or south or north, there was no other in earth's domain under vault of heaven more valiant found, of warriors none more worthy to rule. On their lord beloved they laid no slight, gracious Hrothgar, a good king he. From time to time the tried in battle their grey steeds set to gallop amain, and ran a race when the road seemed fair. From time to time a thane of the king, who had made many vaunts, was mindful of verses stored with sagas and songs of old, bound word to word in well-knit rhyme, wielded his lay. This warrior soon of Beowulf's quest right cleverly sang, and artfully added an excellent tale in well-ranged words of the warlike deeds he had heard in saga of Sigemund. Strange the story, he said it all. The Walesing's wanderings wide, his struggles which never were told to tribes of men, the feuds and the frauds, save to Fitela only. When of these doings he deigned to speak, uncle to nephew. As ever the twain stood side by side in stress of war, and multitude of the monster kind they had felled with their swords. Of Sigemund grew, when he passed from life, no little praise for the doughty in combat, a dragon killed with herded horde. Under hoary rock the atheling dared deed alone, fearful quest, nor was Fitela there. Yet so it befell, his falchion pierced that wondrous worm. On the wall it struck, best blade. The dragon died in its blood. Thus had the dread one by daring achieved over the ring-hoard to rule at will, himself to pleasure. A sea-boat he loaded, and bore on its bosom the beaming gold, son of Wales. The worm was consumed. He had of all heroes the highest renown among races of men, this refuge of warriors, for deeds of daring that decked his name, since the hand and heart of Heremund grew slack in battle. He, swiftly banished to mingle with monsters at mercy of foes, to death was betrayed, for torrents of sorrow had lamed him too long. A load of care to earls and athelings all he proved. Oft indeed in earlier days, for the warriors wayfaring wise men mourned, who had hoped of him help from harm and bale, and had thought their sovereign's son would thrive, follow his father, his folk protect, the hoard and the stronghold, heroes' land, home of Scyldings. But here, thanes said, the kinsman of Hygelac kinder seemed to all. The other was urged to crime, and afresh to the race, the fallow roads by swift steeds measured. The morning sun was climbing higher. Clansmen hastened to the high-built wall, those hardy-minded the wonder to witness. Warden of treasure, crowned with glory, the king himself with stately band from the bride-bower strode, and with him the queen and her crowd of maidens measured the path to the mead-house fair. Hrothgar spake. To the hall he went, stood by the steps, the steep roof saw, garnished with gold, in Grendel's hand. For the sight I see, to the sovereign ruler be speedy thanks. A throng of sorrows I have borne from Grendel, but God still works wonder on wonder, the warden of glory. It was but now that I never more for woes that weighed on me waited help long as I lived, when laved in blood stood sword gore-stained this stateliest house, widespread woe for wise men all, who had no hope to hinder ever foes infernal and fiendish sprites from havoc and horde. This hero now, by the wielder's might, a work has done that not all of us erst could ever do by wile and wisdom. Lo, well can she say, whoso of women this warrior bore among sons of men, if still she liveth, that the God of the ages was good to her in the birth of her bairn. Now, Beowulf, thee, of heroes best, I shall heartily love as mine own, my son. Preserve thou ever this kinship new. Thou shalt never lack wealth of the world that I wield as mine. Full oft for less have I largesse showered my precious hoard on a punier man, less stout in struggle. Thyself hast now fulfilled such deeds that thy fame shall endure through all the ages. As ever he did, well may the wielder reward thee still. Beowulf spake, bairn of Ecgtheow. This work of war most willingly we have fought, this fight, and fearlessly dared force of the foe. Fain too were I hadst thou but seen himself, what time the fiend to his trappings tottered to fall. Swiftly I thought in strongest gripe on his bed of death to bind him down, that he in the heart of this hand of mine should breathe his last. But he broke away. Him I might not, the Maker willed not, hinder from flight, and firm enough hold the life-destroyer. Too sturdy was he, the ruthless in running. For rescue, however, he left behind him his hand in pledge, arm and shoulder, nor aught of help could the cursed one thus procure at all. None the longer liveth he, loathsome fiend, sunk in his sins, but sorrow holds him tightly grasped in gripe of anguish, in baleful bonds, where bide he must, evil outlaw, such awful doom as the mighty Maker shall mete him out. More silent seemed the son of Ecglaf in boastful speech of his battle deeds, since athelings all, through the earl's great prowess, beheld that hand on the high roof gazing, foemen's fingers. The forepart of each, of the sturdy nails, to steel was likest. Heathen's hand-spear, hostile warrior's claw uncanny. 'Twas clear, they said, that him no blade of the brave could touch, how keen soever, or cut away that battle-hand bloody from baneful foe. End of Section 3.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, to find out how you can volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Beowulf, translated by Francis Barton Gumer. Section 4. There was hurry and hest in Heorot now, for hands to bedeck it, and dense was the throng of men and women the wine-hall to cleanse, the guest-room to garnish. Gold gay shone the hangings that were wove on the wall, and wonders many to delight each mortal that looks upon them. though braced within by iron bands, that building bright was broken sorely. Rent were its hinges, the roof alone held safe and sound. When seared with crime, the fiendish foe his flight essayed, of life despairing. No light thing that the flight for safety, say it who will. Force of fate, he shall find his way to the refuge ready for race of man, for soul possesses and sons of earth, and there his body on bed of death shall rest after revel. Arrived was the hour when to hall proceeded Halfdine's son. The king himself would sit to banquet. Ne'er heard I of host in haughtier throng, more graciously gathered round giver of rings. Bowed then to bench those bearers of glory, fain of the feasting. Fately received many a mead cup, the mighty in spirit kinsmen who sat in the sumptuous hall, Hrothgar and Hrothulf. Her oft now was filled with friends, the folk of Scyldings, ne'er yet had tried the traitor's deed. To Beowulf gave the bane of Halfdine a gold-wove banner, guerdon of triumph. Broidered battle flag, breastplate and helmet, and a splendid sword was seen of many, born to the brave one. Beowulf took cup in hall for such costly gifts. He suffered no shame in that soldier throng. For I heard a few heroes in heartier mood, with 4 such gifts, so fashioned with gold. On the ale bench honouring others thus, or the roof of the helmet high a ridge, wound with wires kept ward o'er the head, lest the relict of files should fierce invade sharp in the strife, when that shielded hero should go to grapple against his foes. Then the Earl's defence on the floor bade lead, coursers 8 with carven headgear adown the hall. One horse was decked with a saddle all shining and set in jewels. 'Twas the battle seat of the best of kings, when to play of swords the son of Halfdine was fain to fare, ne'er failed his valour in the crush of combat when corpses fell. To Beowulf over them both then gave the refuge of Ingwines right and power. O war steeds and weapons, wished him joy of them. Manfully thus the mighty prince hoard guard for heroes that hard fight repaid, with steeds and treasures contemned by none, who is willing to say the sooth aright. And the lord of earls to each that came, with Beowulf over the briny ways, an heirloom there at the ale bench gave, precious gift, and the price bade pay, in gold for him whom Grendel erst murdered, and fain of them more had killed, had not wisest God their word averted. And the man's brave mood the Maker then ruled humankind as here and now. Therefore is insight always best, and forethought of mind, how much awaits him of lief and of loath, who long time here through days of warfare this world endures. Then song and music mingled sounds, in the presence of Halfdine's head of armies, and harping was heard with the hero lay, as Hrothgar's singer the hall joy woke, along the mead seats making his song. Of that sudden raid on the sons of Finn, Halfdine's hero, Hnaff the Scylding, was fated to fall in the Frisian slaughter. Hildeburh needed not hold in value her enemy's honour, innocent both, were the loved one she lost at the linden play. Bairn and brother they bowed to fate. Stricken by spears 'twas a sorrowful woman. None doubted why the daughter of Hoc bewailed her doom when dawning came. And under the sky she saw them lying, kinsmen murdered, where most she had kenned of the sweets of the world. By war were swept too Finn's own liegemen, and few were left in the parleying place. He could ply no longer weapon nor war could he wage on Hengest, and rescue his remnants by right of arms from the prince's thane. Pact he offered. Another dwelling the Danes should have, hall and high seat, and half the power should fall to them in Frisian land, and at the fee-gifts. Folkwald's son, day by day the Danes should honour, the folk of Hengest favour with rings, even as truly with treasure and jewels, with fretted gold as his Frisian kin. He meant to honour in ale-hall there. Pact of peace they plighted further, on both sides firmly. Finn to Hengest with oath upon honour openly promised, that woeful remnant with wise men's aid nobly to govern, so none of the guests by word or work should warp the treaty, or with malice of mind bemoan themselves, as forced to follow their fee-giver's slayer, lordless men as their lot ordained. Should Frisian, moreover, with foeman's taunt, that murderous hatred to mind recall, then edge of the sword must seal his doom. Oaths were given, and ancient gold heaped from hoard. The hardy Scylding battle-thane best on his balefire lay. All on the pyre were plain to see, the gory sark, the gilded swine crest, boar of hard iron and aethelings many, slain by the sword at the slaughter they fell. It was Hildeburh's hest at Neff's own pyre, the bairn of her body on brands to lay, his bones to burn on the balefire placed at his uncle's side. And sorrowful dirges bewept them the woman, great wailing ascended, then wound up to welcome the wildest of death fires, roared o'er the hillock, heads all were melted, gashes burst and blood gushed out from bites of the body. Balefire devoured greediest spirit, those spared not by war, out of either folk, their flower was gone. Then hastened those heroes their home to see, friendless to find the Frisian land. Houses in high burg Hengest still, through the death-dyed winter dwelt with Finn, holding pact yet of home he minded, though powerless, his ring-decked prow to drive over the waters. Now waves rolled fierce, lashed by the winds, or winter locked them in icy fetters. Then fared another year to men's dwellings, as yet they do, the sun-bright skies that their season ever duly await. Far off winter was driven, fair lay earth's breast, and fain was the rover, the guest, to depart, though more gladly he pondered on wreaking his vengeance than roaming the deep, and how to hasten the hot encounter, where sons of the Frisians were sure to be. So he escaped not the common doom, when hung with Lefing the light of battle, best of blades, his bosom pierced, its edge was famed with the Frisian earls. On fierce heart Finn there fell likewise, on himself at home the horrid sword death, for Gutlaf and Oslaf of grim attack had sorrowing told from seaways landed, mourning their woes. Finn's wavering spirit bode not in breast, the burg was reddened with blood of foemen, and Finn was slain. King amid clansmen, the queen was taken. To their ship the Scylding warriors bore all the chattels the chieftain owned, whatever they found in Finn's domain of gems and jewels. The gentle wife o'er paths of the deep to the Danes they bore, led to her land. The lay was finished, the gleeman's song. Then glad rose the revel, bench boy brightened, bearers draw from their wonder bats wine. Comes Wealhtheow forth under gold crown, goes where the good pair sit, uncle and nephew, two each to the other one, kindred in amity. Unferth the spokesman at the Scylding lord's feet sat. Men had faith in his spirit, his keenness of courage, though kinsmen had found him unsure at the sword-play. The Scylding queen spoke. Quaff of this cup, my king and lord, breaker of rings, and blithe be thou. Gold friend of men, to the Geats here speak such words of mildness as men should use. Be glad with thy Geats of those gifts, be mindful, or near or far, which now thou hast. Men say to me, a son thou wishest yon hero to hold. Thy Heorot's purged jewel hall brightest, enjoy thou canst, with many a largess, and leave to thy king, folk and realm, when forth thou goest to greet thy doom. For gracious I deem my Hrothulf, willing to hold and rule nobly our youths. If thou yield up first, Prince of Scyldings, thy part in the world, I ween with good he will well requite, offspring of ours, when all he minds that for him we did in his helpless days, of gift and grace, to gain him honour. Then she turned to the seat where her sons were placed, Hrethric and Hrothmund, with heroes' bands, young men together. The Geat too sat there, Beowulf brave, the brothers between. A cup she gave him with kindly greeting, and winsome words of wounden gold. She offered to honour him arm jewels twain, corselet and rings, and of collars the noblest that ever I knew the earth around. Ne'er heard I so mighty, 'neath heaven's dome, a hoard gem of heroes, since Hammer bore to his bright-built burg the Brising's necklace, jewel and gem casket. Jealousy fled he, or Menrock's hate, chose help eternal. The Gallic Geat, grandson of Swerting, on the last of his raids this ring bore with him, under his banner the booty defending, the war spoil warding, but word o'erwhelmed him, what time in his daring dangers he sought, feud with Frisians. Fairest of gems he bore with him, of the beaker of waves, sovereign strong under shield he died. Fell the corpse of the king into keeping of Franks, dear of the breast and that gorgeous ring, weaker warriors won the spoil, the gripe of battle from Geatland's lord, and held the death field. Din rose in hall, Beowulf spake amid warriors and said, this jewel enjoy in thy jocund youth. Beowulf loved these battle weeds wear, a royal treasure and richly thrive. Preserve thy strength, and these striplings here, counsel in kindness requital be mine. Hast done such deeds that for days to come thou art famed among folk both far and near, so wide as washeth the wave of ocean his windy walls. Through the ways of life prosper, O Prince, I pray for thee, rich possessions, true son of mine, be helpful indeed and uphold his joys. Here every earl to the other is true, mild of mood to the master loyal. Thanes are friendly, the throng obedient, liegemen are revelling, list and obey. Went then to her place, that was proudest of feasts, flowed wine for the warriors. Word they knew not, destiny dire, and a doom to be seen by many an earl, when eve should come, and Hrothgar homeward hasten away, royal to rest. The room was guarded by an army of earls, as erst was done. They bared the bench balls, abroad they spread, beds and bolsters. One beer carouser in danger of doom lay down in the hall. At their heads they set their shields of war, bucklers bright on the bench were there, over each atheling easy to see, the high battle helmet, the haughty spear, the corselet of rings, 'twas their custom so, ever to be for battle prepared, at home or harrying which it were, even as oft as evil threatened their sovereign king, they were clansmen good. Then sank they to sleep with sorrow one bought, his rest of the evening, as oft-time had happened when Grendel guard of that golden hall, evil wrought till his end drew nigh, slaughter for sins. 'Twas seen and told how an avenger survived the fiend, as was learned afar. The livelong time after that grim fight, Grendel's mother, monster of women, mourned her woe. She was doomed to dwell in the dreary waters, cold sea coursers, since Cain cut down with edge of the sword his only brother, his father's offspring. Outlawed he fled, marked with murder, from men's delights, warded the wilds. There woke from him such fate-sent ghosts as Grendel, who war wolf horrid at Heorot found, a warrior watching and waiting the fray, with whom the grisly one grappled amain. But the man remembered his mighty power, the glorious gift that God had sent him. In his Maker's mercy put his trust, for comfort and help, so he conquered the foe, felled the fiend, who fled abject, reft of joy to the realms of death, mankind's foe. And his mother now, gloomy and grim, would go that quest of sorrow, the death of her son to avenge. To Heorot came she, where helmeted Danes slept in the hall. Too soon came back, old ills of the earls, when in she burst, the mother of Grendel, less grim though that terror, e'en as terror of woman in war is less, might of maid, then of men in arms, when hammer forged the falcon hard. Sword gore-stained though swine of the helm, crested with keen blade cards amain. Then was in the hall the hard edge drawn, the swords on the settle, and shields a-many, firm held in hand, nor helmet minded, nor harness of mail whom that horror seized. Haste was hers, she would hie afar, and save her life when the liegeman saw her. Yet a single atheling up she seized, fast and firm as she fled to the moor. He was for Hrothgar, of heroes the dearest, of trusty vassals betwixt the seas, whom she killed on his couch, a clansman famous, in battle brave. Nor was Beowulf there. Another house had been held apart, after giving of gold for the Geat renowned. Uproar filled Heorot, the hand all had viewed. Blood fleck she bore with her bale was returned, dole in the dwellings. 'Twas dire exchange, where Dane and Geat were doomed to give the lives of loved ones. Long-tried king, the hoary hero, at heart was sad, when he knew his noble no more lived, and dead indeed was his dearest thane. To his bower was Beowulf brought in haste, dauntless victor as daylight broke, along with his earls the atheling lord. With his clansmen came where the king abode, waiting to see if the wielder of all would turn this tale of trouble and woe. Strode over floor the famed in strife, with his hand companions the hall resounded. Wishing to greet the wise old king, Ingwine's lord he asked if the night had passed in peace to the prince's mind. End of section 4. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, to find out how you can volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Beowulf, translated by Francis Barton Gumer. Section 4.
But it would be a waste if you ended up as just a pretty stain.
This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Peter Yearsley. Beowulf by Anonymous. Translated by Francis Barton Gumer. Section 5. Hrothgar spake, helmet of Scyldings. Ask not of pleasure, pain is renewed to Danish folk. Dead is Aeschere of Irmenlath, the elder brother, my sage adviser and stay in council, shoulder comrade in stress of fight, when warriors clashed and we warded our heads, hewed the helm boars. Hero famed should be every earl as Aeschere was. But here in Hierot a hand hath slain him of wandering death sprite, I wot not whither. Proud of the prey, her path she took, fain of her fill. The feud she avenged that yesternight, unyieldingly. Grendel, in grimmest grasp thou killedst. Seeing how long these liegemen mine he ruined and ravaged. Reft of life, in arms he fell. Now another comes, keen and cruel, her kin to avenge, faring far in feud of blood. So that many a thane shall think, whoe'er sorrows in soul for that sharer of rings, this is hardest of heart bales. The hand lies low that once was willing each wish to please. Land dwellers here, and liegemen mine, who house by those parts, I have heard relate that such a pair they have sometimes seen, march stalkers mighty the moorland haunting, wandering spirits. One of them seemed, so far as my folk could fairly judge, of womankind, and one, accursed, in man's guise, trod the misery track of exile, though huger than human bulk. Grendel, in days long gone, they named him, folk of the land. His father they knew not, nor any brood that was born to him, of treacherous spirits. Untrod is their home, by wolf cliffs haunt they, and windy headlands, fenways fearful, where flows the stream from mountains gliding to gloom of the rocks, underground flood. Not far is it hence in measure of miles that the mere expands, and o'er it the frost-bound forest hanging, sturdily rooted, shadows the wave. By night is a wonder weird to see, fire on the waters. So wise lived none of the sons of men to search those depths. Nay, though the heath rover harried by dogs the horn-proud hart, this halt should seek, long distance driven his dear life, first on the brink he yields, ere he brave the plunge to hide his head. 'Tis no happy place, thence the welter of waters washes up, one to welcome, when winds bestir evil storms and air grows dusk, and the heavens weep. Now is help once more with thee alone, the land thou know'st not, place of fear, where thou findest out that sin-flecked being. Seek if thou dare, I will reward thee for waging this fight, with ancient treasure, as erst I did with winding gold, if thou winnest back. Beowulf spake, bairn of Ecgtheow, sorrow not, sage, it beseems us better friends to avenge, than fruitlessly mourn them. Each of us, all must his end abide in the ways of the world. so win who may glory ere death. When his days are told, that is the warrior's worthiest doom. Rise, O realm warder, ride we anon, and mark the trail of the mother of Grendel. No harbour shall hide her, heed my promise. Enfolding of field or forested mountain or floor of the flood, let her flee whence she will. But thou this day endure in patience, as I ween thou wilt, thy woes, each one. Leapt up the greybeard. God he thanked, mighty Lord, for the man's brave words. For Hrothgar soon a horse was saddled, wave-maned steed. The sovereign wise, stately rode on, his shield-armed men followed in force. The footprints led along the woodland, widely seen, a path o'er the plain, where she passed, and trod the murky moor. Of men-at-arms she bore the bravest and best one, dead, him who with Hrothgar the homestead ruled. On then went the atheling born, o'er stone cliffs, steep and straight defiles, narrow passes and unknown ways, headlands sheer, and the haunts of the Nicors. Foremost he fared, a few at his side of the wisest men, the ways to scan, till he found in a flash the forested hill hanging over the hoary rock, a woeful wood. The waves below were dyed in blood. The Danish men had sorrow and soul, and for Scyldings all, for many a hero, was hard to bear, ill for earls when Aesgare's head they found by the flood on the fallen bear. Waves were welling the warriors saw, hot with blood, but the horn sang oft battle song bold. The band sat down, and watched on the water worm-like things, sea dragons strange that sounded the deep, and Nicors that lay on the ledge of the Ness, such as oft essay at hour of morn on the road of sails their ruthless quest. And sea snakes and monsters, these started away, swollen and savage that song to hear, that war horn's blast. The warden of Geats, with bolt from bow, then balked of life, of wavework, one monster. Amid its heart went the keen war shaft. In water it seemed less doughty in swimming, whom death had seized. Swift on the billows, with boar spears well hooked and barbed, it was hard beset, done to death and dragged on the headland, wave roamer wondrous. Warriors viewed the grisly quest. Then girt him Beowulf in martial mail, nor mourned for his life. His breastplate broad and bright of hues, woven by hand, should the waters dry. Well could it ward the warrior's body that battle should break on his breast in vain, nor harm his heart by the hand of a foe. And the helmet white that his head protected was destined to dare the deeps of the flood, the wave-whirl-wind. 'Twas wound with chains, decked with gold, as in days of yore. The weaponsmith worked it wondrously, with swine forms set it, that swords nowise brandished in battle could bite that helm. Nor was that the meanest mighty helps which Hrothgar's orator offered at need. Grunting they named the hilted sword, of old-time heirlooms easily first. Iron was its edge, all etched with poison, with battle blood hardened, nor blenched it at fight in hero's hand he held it ever. On paths of peril prepared to go to folkstead of foes. Not first time this it was destined to do a daring task, for he bore not in mind the bairn of Ecglaf, sturdy and strong, that speech he had made, drunk with wine. Now this weapon he lent to a stouter swordsman. Himself, though durst not under welter of waters wager his life as loyal liegeman, so lost he his glory, honour of earls. With the other not so, who girded him now for the grim encounter. Beowulf spake, bairn of Ecgtheow, Have mind, thou honoured offspring of Healfdene, gold friend of men. Now I go on this quest, sovereign wise, what once was said. If in thy cause it came that I should lose my life, thou wouldst loyal bide to me, though fallen, in father's place. Be guardian thou to this group of my thanes, my warrior friends, if war should seize me. And the goodly gifts thou gavest me, Hrothgar beloved, to Hygelac send. Geatland's king may ken by the gold, Threthel's son see, when he stares at the treasure, that I got me a friend for goodness famed, and joyed, while I could, in my jewel bestower. And let Unferth wield this wondrous sword, Earl far honoured, this heirloom precious, hard of edge. With Thrunting I seek doom of glory, or death will take me. After these words the Weder Geat lord boldly hastened, biding never answer at all. The ocean flood closed o'er the hero. Long while of the day fled, ere he felt the floor of the sea. Soon found the fiend, who the flood domain, sword hungry, held these 100 winters. Greedy, grim, that some guest from above, some man, was raiding her monster realm. She grasped out for him with grisly claws, and the warrior seized, yet scathed she not his body hale. The breastplate hindered, as she strove to shatter the sark of war, the linked harness, with loathsome hand. Then bore this brine wolf, when bottom she touched, the lord of rings to the lair she haunted, whilst vainly he strove, though his valour held, weapon to wield against wondrous monsters that sore beset him. Sea beasts many tried with fierce tusks to tear his mail, and swarmed on the stranger. But soon he marked he was now in some hall, he knew not which, where water never could work him harm, nor through the roof could reach him ever fangs of the flood. Firelight he saw, beams of a blaze that brightly shone. Then the warrior was ware of that wolf of the deep, mere wife monstrous. For mighty stroke he swung his blade, and the blow withheld not. Then sang on her head that seemly blade its war song wild. But the warrior found the light of battle was loath to bite, to harm the heart. Its hard edge failed the nobleman's need, yet had known of old strife hand to hand, and had helmets cloven, doomed men's fighting gear. First time this for the gleaming blade that its glory fell. Firm still stood, nor failed in valour, heedful of high deeds, Hygelac's kinsman, flung away fretted sword, beatly jewelled, the angry earl. On earth it lay, steel-edged and stiff. His strength he trusted, hand-gripe of might, so man shall do, whenever in war he weens to earn him lasting fame, nor fears for his life. Seized them by shoulder, shrank not from combat with Geatic war prince Grendel's mother, flung them the fierce one filled with wrath, his deadly foe, that she fell to ground. Swift on her part she paid him back with grisly grasp, and grappled with him. Spent with struggle stumbled the warrior, fiercest of fighting men, fell adown. On the hall guest she hurled herself, hent her short sword, broad and brown-edged, the bairn to avenge, the sole-born son. On his shoulder lay braided breast-mail, barring death, withstanding entrance of edge or blade. Life would have ended for Ecgtheow's son under wide earth, for that Earl of Geats, had his armour of war not aided him, battle net hard, and holy God wielded the victory, wisest maker. The Lord of Heaven allowed his cause, and easily rose the Earl erect. Mid the battle gear saw he a blade triumphant, old sword of Eotens, with edge of proof, warrior's heirloom, weapon unmatched. save only 'twas more than other men to bandy of battle could bear at all. As the giants had wrought it, ready and keen, seized then its chain hilt, the Scyldings' chieftain, bold and battle-grim, brandished the sword, reckless of life, and so wrathfully smote that it gripped her neck and grasped her hard, her bone rings breaking. The blade pierced through that fated one's flesh. To floor she sank. Bloody the blade, he was blithe of his deed. Then blazed forth light. 'Twas bright within, as when from the sky there shines unclouded heaven's candle. The hall he scanned, by the wall then went he, his weapon raised high by its hilts, the Haigler trail, angry and eager. That edge was not useless to the warrior now. He wished with speed Grendel to guerdon for grim raids many, for the war he waged from western Danes oftener far than in only time, when of Hrothgar's half-companions he slew in slumber, in sleep devoured 15 men of the folk of Danes, and as many others outward bore his horrible prey. Well paid for that the wrathful prince, for now prone he saw Grendel, stretched there, spent with war, spoiled of life, so scathed had left him Heorot's battle. The body sprang far, when after death it endured the blow, sword stroke savage that severed its head. Soon then saw the sage companions who waited with Hrothgar, watching the flood, that the tossing waters turbid grew, blood-stained the mere. Old men together, hoary-haired of the hero's fate. The warrior would not, they weened, again, proud of conquest, come to seek their mighty master. To many it seemed the wolf of the waves had won his life. The ninth hour came. The noble Scyldings left the headland. Homeward went the gold friend of men. But the guests sat on, stared at the surges, sick in heart, and wished, yet weened not, their winsome lord again to see. Now that sword began, from blood of the fight, in battle droppings, war blade to wane. 'Twas a wondrous thing that all of it melted as ice is wont, when frosty fetters the father loosens, unwinds the wave bonds, wielding all seasons and times. The true god he, nor took from that dwelling the Duke of the Geats, save only the head and that hilt withal blazoned with jewels. The blade had melted, burned was the bright sword, her blood was so hot, so poisoned the hell sprite who perished within there. Soon he was swimming, who safe saw in combat downfall of demons, up dove through the flood. The clashing waters were cleansed now, waste of waves, where the wandering fiend her life days left, at this lapsing world. Swam then to strand the sailor's refuge, sturdy in spirit, of sea booty glad, of burden brave he bore with him. Went then to greet him, and God they thanked, the Thane band, choice of their chieftain blithe, that safe and sound they could see him again. Soon from the hardy one, helmet and armour deftly they doffed. Now drowsed the meal, water neath welcome with war blood stained. Forth they fared by the footpaths thence, merry at heart the highways measured, well-known roads. Courageous men carried the head from the cliff by the sea, an arduous task for all the band, the firm in fight, since 4 were needed on the shaft of slaughter, strenuously to bear to the gold hall Grendel's head. So presently to the palace there, foemen fearless, 14 Geats, marching came. Their master of clan, mighty amid them the meadow ways trod, strode then within the sovereign plain, fearless in fight, of fame renowned, hardy hero Hrothgar to greet. And next by the hair into hall was borne Grendel's head, where the henchmen were drinking, an awe to clan and queen alike, a monster of marvel. The men looked on. Beowulf spake, bairn of Ecgtheow, lo, now this sea booty, son of Healfdene, lord of Scyldings, we've lustily brought thee sign of glory. Thou seest it here. Not lightly did I with my life escape. In war under water this work I essayed with endless effort, and even so my strength had been lost, had the Lord not shielded me. Not a whit could I with fronting do the work of war, though the weapon is good, yet a sword the sovereign of men vouchsafed me, to spy on the wall there, in splendour hanging, old, gigantic. How oft he guides the friendless wight, and I fought with that brand, felling in fight, since fate was with me, the house's wardens. That war sword then all burned, bright blade, when the blood gushed o'er it, battle sweat hot. But the hilt I brought back from my foes. So avenged I their fiendish deeds, deathfall of Danes, as was due and right. And this is my hest, that in Heorot now safe thou canst sleep with thy soldier band, and every thane of all thy folk, both old and young, no evil fear. Scyldings' lord, from that side again aught ill for thy earls, as erst thou must. Then the golden hilt for that grey-haired leader, hoary hero, in hand was laid, giant wrought, old, so owned and enjoyed it after downfall of devils, the Danish lord, wonder smith's work, since the world is rid of that grim-souled fiend, the foe of God, murder mark, and his mother as well. Now it passed into power of the people's king, best of all that the ocean bound, who have scattered the gold in Scandier's eye. Hrothgar spake, the hilt he viewed, heirloom old, where was etched the rise of that far-off fight, where the floods o'erwhelmed, raging waves, the race of giants, fearful their fate, a folk estranged from God eternal, whence guerdon due, in that waste of waters the wielder paid them. So, on the guard of shining gold, in runic staves it was rightly said, for whom the serpent-traced sword was brought, best of blades, in bygone days, and the hilt well wound. The wise one spake, son of Healfdene. Silent were all. Lo, so may he say who sooth and right follows mid folk of far time mindful, a land warden old, that this earl belonged to the better breed. So borne aloft, thy fame must fly, O friend, my Beowulf, far and wide, o'er folksteads many. Firmly thou shalt all maintain, mighty strength with mood of wisdom. Love of mine will I assure thee, as a while ago I promised. Thou shalt prove a stay in future, in far-off years, to folk of thine, to the heroes a help. Was not Heremod thus to offspring of Ecgwela honour Scyldings, nor grew for their grace, but for grisly slaughter, for doom of death to the Danishman? He slew, wrath swollen, his shoulder comrades, companions at board. So he passed alone, chieftain haughty from human cheer. Though him the Maker with might endowed, delights of power, and uplifted high above all men, yet blood fierce his mind, his breast hoard grew, no bracelets gave he to Danes, as was due. He endured all joyless, strain of struggle and stress of woe, long feud with his folk. Here find thy lesson. Of virtue advise thee. This verse I have said for thee, wise from lapsed winters. Wondrous seems how to sons of men Almighty God in the strength of his spirit sendeth wisdom, estate, high station. He swayeth all things, whiles he letteth right lustily fare the heart of the hero of high-born race. In seat ancestral assigns him bliss. His folk's sure fortress in fee to hold, puts in his power great parts of the earth. Empire so ample, that end of it this wanter of wisdom weeneth none. So he waxes in wealth, no wise can harm him, illness or age. No evil cares shadow his spirit, no sword-hate threatens from ever an enemy. All the world wends at his will. No worse he knoweth, till all within him obstinate pride waxes and wakes, while the warden slumbers, the spirit's sentry. Sleep is too fast, which masters his might, and the murderer nears, stealthily shooting the shafts from his bow. End of section 4 of Beowulf.